Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to talk about 604, VIN 604-0604. It is a 2016 liquid platinum paint code 1J2 with a LA20 black interior with standard carbon fiber trim. It popped up on Auto Trader about 3 weeks ago, still for sale right now. It has, let me get my notes, 73,000 miles and they want $52,000 for it. So I would say, let's dig into it and see if that price is commensurate with what the market is fetching right now. This is the end of July. It was first listed at the end of June, so not quite 4 weeks. A little unusual for a car like this to be sitting unless there's something else at play. Generally it's price if there's nothing else, and so on the 2016s, they're kind of all over the place, very heavily dependent on mileage and condition, obviously. This 2016, the kind of the ballpark range for 2016s with this kind of mileage is like upper 40s. So like 48 to maybe 52 on the high end if it's really clean. And so, 52 is what they're asking here. So I would say, if anything, it's on the high end of the asking price. So digging in further, Carfax shows it as a 2-owner, no accident car. I don't have an auto check on it, but Epic VIN also shows 2-owner, no accident vehicles. So more than one source, we're in agreement that it has no accidents or damage reported. So this is one of the less than 1,000 GSFs out there right now in the US that is a clean title, no accidents, no damage reported car. And so those are getting harder and harder to find. So we're off to a pretty good start so far. 72,000 miles for a 2016. It's on the lower end of the average mileage that you see for 2016s. Most of them right now are around the 80, 90, 100 plus thousand mile range. They are lower mile cars, but if they were daily driven, you're gonna see them rack up on the 2016s, especially because there's many more 2016s out there than there are other years. So a lot of the ones you're gonna hear me talk about are 2016 models. As I said, it's for sale at an independent dealer in Austin, Texas, Central Texas. It looks like it was first registered as a corporate vehicle in California, but it was not Lexus corporate. So it was somebody in Northern California that owned it. So it was in California for a year and then it came to Texas, but it was serviced a lot in Mississippi during that time between 2017 and 2025. But now it shows owned in Montana, even though it's owned by a dealer currently. So it's a little weird kind of stuff like that. Owned in Montana, not unusual to see it in Texas to kind of skirt around emissions requirements here that Austin, Dallas, Houston areas have, San Antonio. Basically, you register the car in the Montana LLC, but you drive it in Texas, and Montana doesn't have emissions, inspections, anything like that. So that's one way to get around some of that. So let's dive into production numbers for these cars before we go even further. For the 2,347 cars that were made over the 5 years for the US 49, so that's 49 states except Hawaii, only 153 of those were liquid platinum. So already right out of the gate, liquid platinum, you're starting with a pretty low production car. If you dig into how many had liquid platinum plus the black interior, that was 91. So now you're one of 91 cars that ever exist for this market is what this car is. 2016 only, there's only 116 of the 1,417 cars that were identified, and only 69 of those are liquid platinum with black interior. So this is a 1 of 69 car, not the lowest, it's not a 1 of 5, 1 of 1, 1 of whatever, 1 of 69 cars. That's pretty cool to see that it's on the lower end of the production for or higher rarity, I guess, compared to some other cars. You won't even find Porsches that are this rare, 1 of 69. That's the production. So now let's jump into previous sales before we get into where it is now. Previous sales, so it was sold new January 16th of 2016 for $87,500 in California. In December of 2018, 28,000 miles in Texas, 53,000. So only $1,000 more than what they're asking now, 7 years later. And so that's what I said. I talk about these cars where if you bought these cars around 2018, 2019, you can drive them for free, basically for 5 to 7 years. And that's holding truth with this one. So again, it was for sale about 4 months later by the same dealer. So I think they probably just removed the listing, put it back up. Same price, $53,000, 28,000 miles. So it was for sale for about 4 months is what it looks like. And then the next sale, or the next asking price, it was listed on June 21st, 2025, again here in Texas, again for $53,000. 7 years later for the same price, but it has another 50,000 miles on it, 45,000 miles. So now with 73,000 miles, $53,000 asking price. Now let's jump into what we're seeing in the picture. So looking at the dealer's website and what they have on Edmunds and Auto Trader, they're pretty low quality pictures. So it's kind of tough to tell some of these like in detail. You can't zoom very close without it being pixelated. I guess that would warrant just go and look at it in person and inspect it. Do your regular due diligence when you're shopping for a car, not just the in-depth stuff that I'm doing here, but just, walk around it. Does it have any dents? Does it have any obvious other paint work or chips, not road rash, but you get my point. From what I can tell, just looking at the pictures, it definitely doesn't look like it has paint protection film on the front. It has some chips and things along the carbon fiber piece on the lower front splitter, the lower spoiler, along with the bumper and minorly on the headlights. But I would call that, it's pretty commensurate to the mileage that you would expect to see on a car like this age, this mileage. I don't really see any red flags there. Jumping on to the interior, I do see what appears to be the start of course, the carbon fiber trim delaminating. And that's something you're going to see as a common issue along all of these cars. Lexus never did really anything to address it other than they replaced it under warranty. Some of us get it replaced under the ZLZ, the ZLZ customer service campaign, where they replace the dash and the front two pieces of carbon fiber, which are also known to delaminate. This car, there's no evidence in the service history, anything about the carbon fiber being done. So it's either been done outside of the dealer or refinished by the owner, or they just haven't failed yet. But if you actually look closely at the pictures that are provided, you can see the white spots on the edge where it looks like it's just starting to delaminate. So that's something that, you probably keep that in mind, that there's going to be an expense moving forward. Another thing that I would make sure you look at very closely on this car is get the valley plate inspected. That is becoming a big issue on these cars that are popping up for sale, especially around that mileage. Mine is a 2016. The valley plate was leaking at 52,000 miles. It has 55,000 on it now, something like that. But 52,000 miles, and it was replaced early last year in 2024. And so these others that we've seen come up for sale, people go and inspect them, put a scope right underneath the intake manifold. You see the crusty pink coolant. You're due for a minimum of $1,000, if not, if you take it to the dealer, as much as $2,000 or more to get that replaced. It's very labor intensive to do that. That's why it's such an expensive job. It's why it's important, if you buy one of these cars, you at least inspect it, but bonus points if it's already done. Overall, interior looks good, exterior looks great. I don't see any concerns with the title history or anything like that. It doesn't have a ton of owners, it doesn't have any accidents, doesn't have any damage reported. All green flags. So the last thing, of course, is the service history. So looking through the service history, this car was pretty well serviced at Lexus as well. So, another green flag, check, 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 and check. So starting in the beginning, December 16 with 10,000 miles, there was a complaint about abnormal shifting and the fuel pump making noise. Well, the fuel pump making noise, that was a common issue on these, and all they did is reprogram one of the modules or something, and that went away. The complaints about slow shifting, you will see that when you look through service history on these cars. Typically what it is that these transmissions take a long time to fully heat up. The transmissions in these cars, the fluid, there's a lot of fluid in them, and they take a long time to fully get up to temperature. And when I say up to temperature, above 110 degrees Fahrenheit fluid temperature, and so that takes a long time. And if you try to shift hard or put it in sport mode or something like that, it will not shift quickly. It won't be quick, snappy shifts until the fluid is completely up to temperature. And that's always been the case with my ownership with this. Sometimes it takes as many as 8 to 10 miles of driving before the transmission is fully warmed up, where when you want to shift it, it responds immediately and it's quick, things like that. All the other times, especially if it's cold out, it takes forever for it to actually shift very quickly. And so I think that That's going to be what you're going to see with this one. And so, as I said, that was 10,000 miles. They talked about the abnormal shifting. September of 2017, 5,000 miles later with 15,000 miles, yet again, complaints about slow shifting. And so the tech got in, drove it, and just responded and said, no abnormal issues, no codes, no nothing found. And so I think it's just somebody that wasn't used to the way these cars respond, how the transmissions are. It's the AA80 transmission that's in these, you know, they've been around forever. It's the ISF, all of the other cars, there's many other cars that this transmission has been in, and people are, if you're new to driving one of these cars, the behavior of the transmission is something that takes a little getting used to. So moving on, May of 2018, 22,000 miles, the JLB, that's the high pressure fuel pumps, those were replaced, those were recalled. So the recall's done. They had a complaint about the navigation not showing in the right spot. That's another customer service program. It looks like they tried to reprogram it, but there wasn't that customer service program out yet. 1 year later, May 2019, with another 6,000 miles added at 28,000 miles, they reported a scratch on the right rear door. So let's go back to the pictures and see if there's still a scratch there. Maybe it's been touched up, maybe there's been some paint work. That's something to investigate. A couple months later, in September of 2019, 33,000 miles, the KLG was done. And so that's the customer service campaign where they reprogram the DCM, the data control module, for the GPS location on the navigation. So I've talked about it in other videos where if you're on the main highway, it may show you off to the side or something like that. And so Lexus had figured out how to resolve that, and so this is done on this car. So it's had a lot of the common issues for the customer service campaigns already addressed, already taken care of on these cars. The only one that I don't see is anything about the servos. The HVAC servos, there's 5 servo motors that are underneath the dash, and if those fail, they'll throw a code, not a check engine light, but it'll actually store a code in the BCM, the body control module. And if you have a fancy scanner or something, you can pull those. But typically what will happen is if you put your vent on completely cold or something, it's going to blow hot air out. So maybe the blend door servo is failing, something like that. If you take it to Lexus, the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to do what's called a servo sweep. And so they'll basically just reset the open and fully closed positions of all of the servos and send you on your way. They may grease the rods on the side, and if it comes back, then they'll replace the servos. That's some big money if you have to end up doing that, because they have to pull the dash for most of them to be replaced. And so that has not been done on this car, or at least there's no notes on it in the service history. So something to keep in mind if you're going to go test drive this car, especially right now in the summer. Set it hot on one side, set it cold on the other, cycle through all of the HVAC, the defrost, the head, the feet, all of that. Make sure everything responds as it should, all the temperatures change like they should. That is something to be aware of. Most importantly, especially buying a car right now, so this car has 73,000 miles in April of 2024 with 62,000 miles. The 60,000 mile service is done. That's the big service on these. So that's spark plugs, all the fluids, inspect absolutely everything. That's been done on this car already. So that's another couple grand saved if you did it at the dealer. This was done at the dealer. So somebody paid some pretty good dollars to have this serviced in 60K completely done. But that was the last service history that's shown on the Lexus service history. But I think that it looks well serviced. There's no issues on the Carfax. It doesn't have a bunch of owners. It looks clean overall, other than just, some minor wear, but that's to be expected for a car with 70-something thousand miles. This car being for sale for less than a month, I don't see any issues. I would go check it out and see if it's worth buying. But from the outside looking in, all the green flags are there. I don't see any red flags that I would be concerned about buying it. Obviously don't go buy one of these sight unseen, but do your homework. Get the valley plate inspected, check out the HVAC vents, all the servos, things like that. Look really closely at the carbon fiber delamination, and that's about it. But I mean, there's no red flags for this one. So that's VIN 604. Just go check it out. I think it's going to be a good one for somebody. It's a rarer color as far as these goes. It's not black, white, or blue. So, it could be potential a potential great car for somebody. And, you know, having 75,000 miles or so on it already, you know, just go get in it, make it your daily, you know, go enjoy it. So that's what I got for you for this one today, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.